think we have anybody in there just yet. Let's get this project open. Just need a moment. I'm already like 5 minutes later than I should be. So apparently that's just a perpetual thing. Nope, gonna mute that. Okay. Should be all right. Put this here where I can see it. Okay. Pretty much left off exactly where I was yesterday with this, which was on this animation instance stuff, which right now is a lot of very repetitive variable naming, pretty much. This is like naming specific animation loops or instances that we may use. I've got a list of them over here that I'm running through. I don't like that particular font color that it is using. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm sure it's whatever the specific theming is, or what the syntax highlighter is, but it's making that one name impossible to read. But it is guessing what I need correctly, so that's good. Oh, good, there's a bug on the ceiling. That's good. That's just stink bug. That's great. What am I going to do about you? You stay up there and we'll be fine. I'll deal with you later. Let's see. We need the head and the spine. Can I change the coloration on this? That would be great. There's probably a roundabout way to do it. Shorten that so its internal name is less awful. Thanks for the follow, Jones. VB. Let's do foot. Target. That's actually a bone name, so we want to keep that lowercase. I mean, kind of, but not really. That's not exactly what I want you to do. I want you to underscore these like the bone name or socket name. Let's see, name. root, which can just be text root. Yep, good. I was assuming it was going to end up pulling the full name again like it did on the other one. Okay, now that we've got these named. Character animation instance. Native initialize animation. Super, so that it gets its parent. Character, we want to cast to an instance of the base character, but we don't want the owning actor. We want to try to get the pawn owner. And then if character is true, oops, not that. If character is true, then we're going to character on jumped delegate dot add unique dynamic. Yep, that's what we needed right there. Then we need our native begin play. Okay. Let's see. Since we can go ahead and write it first, and then I'll figure out how to comment it. Because pawn components are not really initialized during the initialize animation, so we need to a pawn owner equals try get pawn owner, yes. Find component by class. Yes. Are not really the native initialize animation. Float for delta seconds. Do a super. Send that along. And if character and delta seconds. Zero. The character delta seconds equals 0. Then we can just do a return true. Let's see. AMR rate should be character get AMR rate. Oh, good. The stink bug has moved. Where did you go, stink bug? I thought I saw movement. Love that. I love that I don't know where he is now. That's great. Cool. Awesome. Actually, let's see. Let's see. How about all that? Let's see. If the character's grounded, then we should if moving or not, and enable animations. Okay. Perform a should move check. And if the B previous should move is equal to false, and B should move is equal to true, which actually we don't need to set anything for there. That's sort of implicit by just typing it that way. Then we can set our turn in place values. Elapsed delay time to 0. Grounded. Oops. Rotate left to false. And our grounded rotate right to false. And if grounded should move is true, then do this while moving. We should update rotation. Oh, no, rotation values in delta seconds. We just need to update rotation values and update movement values delta seconds. And this is when starting to move. Else that hey Zoomers, the chat notification sound I have set up scared the crap out of me. The stream doesn't hear it, but it just gets my attention when there's chat, and it just scared the bejesus out of me. I need to find a better sound for that. It's just the default one that Streamlabs had. Do this while not moving. Well, this has nothing to do with it. We can get rid of that. We've got several things to do. If the can rotate in place is true. Shit. If can rotate in place is true. Then we want to do a rotate in place check. Else prefer to have it written like this. I don't know that's how Visual Studio is going to like it, but I'd prefer it to be written like this. Yeah, it doesn't particularly like how I want it written, but I prefer to read it like this. Grounded, B rotate left to false, and our grounded, B rotate right to false. And then we have another if statement. Can turn in place is true. Oops. We'll do a turn in place check over delta seconds. Else. Yes, elapsed delay time to 0. That's exactly what we want to do. If can dynamic transition. Do a dynamic transition check. We don't need the delta seconds. Happy Thursday to you as well. Although it's almost like a Friday for me because, I mean, technically I work tomorrow, but I work from home because of the winter weather that's coming. So I don't have to go to the office. So it's almost like it's a Friday. Ah. Yeah, that can be unfortunate. I just work a standard weekday 9 to 5 kind of thing. Just a regular old salary position. Let's see. It should be this guy. Should be an else if. The movement state is in error. So that we can do yeah, I guess if you're serving at a restaurant or a bar or whatever it may be, then yeah, you're gonna probably get most of your traffic, most of your customers during the weekends. So, of course, I guess that also depends on where you're at because, like, here where I am, we got the winter storm blowing through, so most places are probably going to be closed. And then, like, I guess if people are out in LA, things are on fire and they're having to evacuate. So, you know, there's one half of the country's got ice, the other half's got fire. It's kind of a whole thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it has been kind of just chugging along. It's supposed to get here in the morning, possibly in the afternoon. Let's see. See if the forecast has changed. Because at last check, the forecast I'm looking at still says during the afternoon, but Yeah, during the afternoon. But because of where I work versus where I live, if I had been driving to, like, if they had not decided that the office wasn't going to open and I had to drive to work, we would have probably closed early anyway to send people home in that case when it started up. And unfortunately, that would have actually been worse for me because then I would have been driving into the storm because I have to go west to get home. And it's coming from the west. So, assuming I still have power, I'll be able to stream tomorrow afternoon or evening. How's programming? You know, it's going about the same. You know, the usual slow progress that I've made on most of these streams. We don't need delta seconds for that. Did I set a... Let's see. Did I set one of these for crawling? Grounded. No, I did not. So we're good. Oh, thank you for the following, Kitty. Update ragdoll values. So that's good for this one. Yeah, that's good for this one. Void. When is the release date? Well, given that I'm still programming a player controller, at best it's going to be probably a year or two. I mean, I effectively had to start over from scratch because the state I left it in was untenable. So probably at least a few hours. That's funny. I mean, you have to figure that, like, granted, this isn't going to be a huge thing, but you have to figure that, you know, your AAA games have usually staffs in the hundreds, right? If not larger, depending on like contractors and stuff. So games like that can still take years to release. That a single person working on a project, it's going to take a while. And then there's the added fact that this is a solo project, but I do have a project I'll be working on with a group. And so I'll have to decide, you know, how much time I put towards each. So I would actually suspect that one will probably see the light of day first, but who knows? It could turn out to not be any good. That's the other problem. Yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages, especially if you're, I mean, a lot of that has to do with like, you know, your budget, like which a lot of times when you're talking these kind of small indie projects means it's effectively non-existent. So, which means, you know, at that point, yeah, you could say some people are going to push others to get things done. I would almost say, and this is the route I've taken with the guys I'm working with, is basically, hey, this is not earning your living. So since this isn't what earns your living, it should not be your main priority. Exactly. It should be your spare time. Now, there are people like me, and at least one of my other team members for the other project is kind of like me in this way. We we aren't good at having like spare time, so we don't really do hobbies that aren't also work. So it could go either way. I actually have to. We kind of put off some meetings about that project until after the new year, so I have to get some stuff scheduled with those guys so we can actually get started on that Souls-like. I mean, I still get to effectively do, software development for a day job. So kind of doing the same thing the entire day, no matter where I am, just with a slightly different objective. I don't work for a game studio. I work for like a manufacturing company, but that was actually exactly correct. I'm surprised. Like, one of our guys. That's true. Or at the very least, they're very overworked. But they do tend to pay poorly compared to regular jobs. Or, if nothing else, it kind of compares poorly because they tend to be in high cost of living areas, so your money doesn't go as far. So, but one of our guys is a freelance. I mean, he does programming as well, but he's a freelance artist. Like, that's how he makes his living. He's doing freelance work. And we were trying to like plan some stuff before the end of the year. He's like, "Oh, I'm busy. I got all this freelance stuff." And I basically told him, I was like, "I don't like do your freelance stuff. I'm not. You are not earning your living doing stuff with us. I don't expect you to prioritize us in any way." No one wants to be a Walmart internal app dev. Yeah, probably not. Although I would be very surprised if Walmart has internal application developers. I suspect they are outsourcing that somewhere. Like, I'm sort of, well, I say I'm sort of surprised. I knew that they had these positions, but like, I'm sort of surprised the company I work for, a manufacturing company of all things, keeps an entire like software development team staffed the way they do all the time, because there's long periods of time where there's actually not much going on, just because of how how the rest of the business is moving. Well, a lot of them have them, but I've also seen a lot of them where they're outsourcing, and that seems to be because then they can, if they're outsourcing, they can, drop them as a cost when the project's done, and they don't currently have something for them to work on. Keeping, I'm not saying it's right, but keeping a group of developers on staff all the time, just in case you need them for something, is generally a pretty costly measure, and not something a lot of companies are going to want to do. But it is kind of about doing what pays the bills. Oh, sure. Yeah. If you want things, done quickly and efficiently. You want to keep an issue with IntelliSense was, yeah, there probably is an issue with IntelliSense considering the file is referencing things that aren't done yet. Can you go away, please? Thank you. Yeah, so like you want to have the people that know what's going on, but that's, I mean, I've seen the regret that comes with that. There was a company I worked for. I wasn't a developer for them. I was just doing help desk, but I distinctly remember a customer and it had nothing to do with what we were doing, but a customer had like an application that they used and it was like really old and outdated and they needed it updated. But like no one knew how the thing worked. And I think they were frantically trying to find a secondary solution. It's kind of a whole mess. But let's see. I need to get timer manager. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how things go here. They don't want to have to keep hiring and where I'm at now, they don't want to keep hiring and retraining people. So, you know, when things get slow, they offer opportunities for you to just, you know, learn something in the meantime if that's what you want to do. Or find something else for you to do, or and that's, I think, the way to handle it. You gotta keep your guys up to snuff. When we get somewhere new where I work, my boss asked me after 3 months if they're doing good or if we need someone new. I would almost say, depending on the type of job and the type of position, like if it's, you know, senior, you know, if it's entry, I would almost say that's not long enough in some cases for some industries. Like, it's application support. Oh, picking up things at a proper rate. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could see if someone's at least, you know, learning. And I mean, if you have that understanding with the people you work with, that to know that that's what he means when he asks that question, then I think that's probably good. I think the problem is a lot of times you don't necessarily think about something the same way as it's worded. Like I've had questions asked to me where, I mean, thankfully I thought to get the clarification, but it was pretty clear that they were saying, you know, is this, I'm trying to do this in like the least identifying way possible. And I actually, in retrospect, I'm going to leave that subject alone because I'm not sure if I can talk about that one without incriminating anything. That someone joined 6 months ago and they still aren't trusted during on call to be truly by themselves. I mean, that could be people skills, which, you know, I think that's the catch-22 of the technology field sector, is the people who want to go into that kind of thing are often not going to be people, people. Like, they're not going to be social generally. Way too important. Things get fixed fast if they break. I have to way too often tell the new people to speak up on calls. I mean, I guess it does depend on maybe what level of support you're providing. I've kind of been all over the board as far as help desk support goes, from like application support to hardware support to. I once had to support a program I had looked at for all of half an hour because that's just what was being demanded of me at the time, and I was the only one who had even the slightest clue what the thing was doing because the people that they'd had before had left. Looks into the code. I mean, I think we would internally, I believe, consider those to be like analysts. I think we have some of those, but they're not on my team. Let's see. Well, I mean, that's definitely the truth that many places call things many different things. I mean, we have a bunch of people that all effectively have the same title but do drastically different things. And I think that in its own way can cause some problems because then people outside your department don't necessarily understand what it is you do. I think that bug is back. I just saw movement. That's great. I got a bug to deal with at some point. I think it's a stink bug. Which means as long as I don't squish him and he doesn't fly into me and scare himself, I'll be fine. If he chooses to do either of those things, it'll be very unpleasant to stay in this room for a while. Not rotate in place values. Game dev is one of those things better done as indie on the side than if you do somehow make a big hit. Yeah. Although profit isn't going to the company that underpays you. Even outside of that, so I went to school for game development. Simulation and game design was my original associate's degree. And aside from the pay issues, like before I really kind of had an understanding of how that part of the industry was behaving, the larger issues I learned about that I had more of a problem with was like the stability, because they so often are overhiring to get something done faster, and then will be very quick to lay people off when it's all said and done. And so between that and then like the chronic overtime and things like that, the crunch time that those kind of groups experience, I kind of made the decision that even if I could get into that industry, I probably didn't want to. So I decided to pursue other things, which is how I ended up going and getting a bachelor's in software development eventually. And just kind of working as just a web developer more than anything else. Try to get a true dev role and just figure stable application support analyst is truly called as better. Yeah, I mean, I up until like 2 years ago, close to, I was doing just a, I say basic help desk. That's what I was hired for, but my role had pretty significantly changed over the 5 or so years that I did that job. And I kind of thought for a long while that, like, you know, it was earning the paycheck. It was, I'm not gonna say it was not easy work by any stretch of the imagination. It came easily to me, but it was definitely a high pressure environment. It's definitely responsible for some high blood pressure problems that I have now in my life. But it, you know, it was something I was like, well, this, you know, this works if this is what I do for a long time. And, you know, my other projects have to, or my other passions have to be hobbies, then so be it. But I sort of lucked into what I do now, and in more ways than one, and it's a healthier relationship with my work, my day job, I guess I'll say. Did I type that differently up here? Why is it? No, it's right there. That's how it's typed. It just is underscoring it red. Why does it have a problem with it? What is your problem? To parameter type fname. Is it going to be a 2D or 3D game? It is going to be a 3D game, mostly because I've never been good at 2D art, but I am a okay 3D modeler. I sort of got into game design and game development by doing mods for the Jedi Knight games back in the day. So it's not gonna be like super high level graphics because, one, that's more time. That's more resources that I as an individual don't have. But I'm looking at it being like a Resi 4 style over the shoulder gameplay. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like PS1 graphics or anything. In many ways, I think that's almost harder because if you want it to be true to that, then there's a very specific style that you have to emulate. But it's going to be 3D, and that's also because partially because I'm working in Unreal and Unreal 4 specifically, and I'm doing that because that's what I'm familiar with. My original degree program used Unreal 3, so it's just the platform that I'm used to. Yeah, it was more due to hardware limitations than anything else that they had the PS1 graphics the way they did. Like that sort of flicker was more about the hardware than anything else, and now it's more of a stylistic thing because that's what they looked like. But the what was it? You know what? I'll show you. This wasn't intentional. I've actually I was already thinking this before I played this game, but it's probably going to end up being more on the graphics level of like this game, Hollow Body, which has almost more of a PS2 era look to it. Although it does use tank controls, for its stuff. I think by default it was tank controls. You can turn them off. but it's probably gonna be something more like this in terms of the level of graphics. So that really comes down to what happens in process kind of thing. But that's a game I played recently that came out fairly recently, I believe, and I was like, "Yep, this is probably about right." And I mean, will it come? Will I try to push it to console? That'll be another question. Not anytime soon. I won't even plan that. That's why I'm not even concerned about whatever PS5 Pro or whatever next gen thing eventually comes out. Like, dev kits are expensive, so that would, yeah, if it sells well on PC, that would basically be probably the only way that it would see its way to console. In my case as well. The only exception might be if Microsoft is still doing their Universal Windows platform stuff, because that had an indie program where you could turn a basic like Xbox One into a development kit effectively, and you could build for the Windows Store in a way that would also support the Xbox. But I think they ended that program. It was like ID at Xbox or something was what it was called. I think they ended it a little while back. So, and I would have to specifically build that into the engine. Like, Unreal didn't come with that as a default. There was a specific source build of it that included that, but it's for an older version. So it would be a real pain in the ass to get it working. So I would be far more likely to wait and see what happens. So I don't know that a single player game, and you know what? I know there's certainly examples to counter it, but I don't know that a single player indie game would be as likely to pop off the way Among Us did. That the social aspect of that game was probably what did that more than anything else. I do plan to, and I say this as a plan because there's several other factors involved in it. I do plan to have hopefully Mac support because I do own a Mac, so I can build on Mac. Unfortunately, time may be a factor there because Unreal 4 kind of has a cutoff on the Xcode, like the Mac development kit, and the way they sort of deprecate their versions, that I may eventually hit a point that I can't build for Mac. But I do want to have like Linux support and specifically make sure I support the Steam Deck, because I have one of those and those are pretty cool. Yeah, there certainly are some single player games that have gone big. Like I said, I know there are examples that counter that statement, but I don't know that Cuphead that you've cited there, I don't know that that was anywhere near as big a phenomena as you could say Among Us was. And in Among Us's case, I think it was almost, in Cuphead's case, I think it was almost more of its specific art style. I mean, yes, it was brutally hard, but its specific art style was probably what got its attention, first of all. And then people realized, oh, this game is brutal. Oh yeah, it was certainly there's been a lot of very successful indie games. But then there's also the question of, when you're operating at that scale, especially when you're operating at the scale of an individual, what do you classify as successful? Like, and that's probably more of a personal metric than anything else, but there is what is commercially successful, what is like a social phenomenon, what is viral. personally, I think as long as it doesn't get panned in any kind of reviews, I'll be fine. Like, and if it does, it does. If it makes enough that I can live off it for a couple years, I would definitely consider that successful. Because especially the way the prices of everything are going. Because boy, have I had to make home repairs recently. Actually, you know what? If it makes enough that I can like pay off some of the home repairs we've had to do, like our HVAC and our heater, we had to put in a whole new unit for our heat and everything right before winter hit. Like, we had to put in new windows on this house. It's a whole thing. If I could pay that stuff off, I'd be happy. But I'm not doing it for money. I have always been a creative. I actually don't know what I would do if I couldn't create. I might go insane. I would certainly like to be paid for my creative endeavors, but I would do them, I do them regardless because, I don't know, it's hard coded into me. Not to be too on the nose with the programming metaphors. I cannot type to save my life. And I feel silly, like, saying that like, I would do this. I would do creative stuff anyway, because I think a lot of people would say that. And it sounds really cliche. But, I mean, I grew up in a family with a number of artists in it, like creative people, and it's just what I've pursued almost my entire life. I wanted to make games probably since I knew how to use a computer. Like, I didn't really understand at the time what that would entail, as often we don't ever understand what our, future prospects, the jobs we claim we want to do are going to entail. But that was kind of what led to me learning how to do game mods, how to make mods, was wanting to create stuff for games. So I used to I figured out how on my own with the tools available online to make new character models for that game, and that was sort of what got me started. And eventually led to me looking into how to go to school for that kind of thing. And I almost wanted to go specifically for like animation. But kind of decided, as bad off as people can be and overworked as people can be in the gaming industry, I think the animation industry is probably pretty bad off too, in kind of a lot of the same ways. So let's see here. Yeah. It is really, yeah. I've heard similar. It's really hard. It can be really hard to find a job in the animation industry. It is a very competitive industry. You know a guy that got a master's in animation. They're a truck driver now. He couldn't find a job in animation. I know someone that works in animation. I'm not sure if that's what their degree actually was in, to be honest. Because by the time I knew them, they already worked as an animator. And to my knowledge, she still works as an animator. But I imagine that it was a difficult position to get, but she's had it for a long time now, so she might have gotten in before it got really bad. And I don't know that she has any plans to go anywhere anytime soon. Now that she has that position. But that was sort of the thing, though, is like, I don't know that I wouldn't have been happy as an animator. I'm a okay animator at best. Anyway, so it's another reason why I don't want to go for highly realistic graphics. The animation would be way too uncanny valley. 3D graphics are beyond me in all aspects. You know, I could see why a lot of people say things like that, or that they might say that drawing is beyond them. But I think there is a element of talent, I think, like there is with almost everything. But I think a lot of it's just time, like spending time with it. There are certainly tools for it that are easier than others. I will say, while I have every intention to eventually learn Blender because of its open source nature, and a lot of people swear by Blender, as someone that got their start using software like Gmax, which I don't think exists anymore in any form, and then eventually 3ds Max, and eventually Maya, like, I look at Blender and I get intimidated. Yeah, and what to allocate time to? I'd say, like, if it was something you actually wanted to do, you kind of have to take it in stages, like with a lot of things. You'd have to take, I would say almost first, like, you don't jump straight into like making a person. You would probably jump first into like the principles of, because you'd have to start with the character modeling, but in a way you'd have to start with like basic shapes. Yeah, and I have seen what to do, so many different things. They allocate so little time to everything. Nothing ever gets learned. Yeah, you definitely can have that problem too. I think some of that is probably like I don't want to put it off as like a bad thing, but it's definitely going to be an issue of like self-management. Like, there are certain people that are just not wired in their brain to self-motivate and self-manage. That's not what I wanted at all. You know, I think a perfect example can be things like online school, because a lot of online schools, they don't like hold your hand. And that sounds like a kind of a negative, like, sounds like I'm putting people down to word it that way. But what I mean by that is, like, you're not going to have someone saying, okay, so, you know, this is going to be due at this day, and da 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 da, and you know, how far have you gotten on it? How close are you going to be? Like, you have to be able to figure out, okay, I have these things to do in this amount of time. How am I going to balance that out and stay on yourself about it? Online school can be completed faster than traditional college if you keep yourself at it, but I know some will do online and they just forget about it. Remember, in college, most people, assignment could have a 1 month due day out, and everyone started it one day before. I think that's just teenage procrastination more than anything else. I mean, I certainly was bad about that in my education early on. And some of that's like an ADHD thing, which is something I've certainly dealt with. But there's also different degrees of that. Like, you know, for some people, ADHD and comes with those sort of inability to self-motivate. Because you get so distracted or you have trouble focusing. And I definitely struggle with the focusing sometimes. But at the same time, I can like really hyper focus. And because of that, I kind of learned a degree of, as long as it's something I'm interested in, a degree of almost exceptional personal management. Where with very specific things, very certain things, it can almost be like a superpower. And other things, it's completely useless. But for some things it can work. Yeah, you do have to like really take interest in it. You clamped, float. Like, oop. You have to it's almost more than an interest, because you almost have to have like is passion the right word for it? A passion for something to get that level of motivated about it. And I think some people just don't find that. They don't have things that they're super passionate about. That could probably be some of it. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's a bad thing if they let it defeat them and say that, you know, because I don't have this, I have to give up. But I'm trailing off as I sit here and try to read this and think math thoughts. There's too much math. Character movement, or no, character information, character movement. No, B has, I put this here for a reason. B has movement input. Let's see. Delta, not decta, delta equals character information, movement input. To orientation rotator minus the character actor rotation. Yep, that's what we want. And then we need to do a delta normalize constant float interpret target. I think too, though, it's when it comes to stuff like this, it's like, don't think that learning stuff means you have to have it all memorized. Sure, if you're like taking tests and stuff for something, trying to get certified in something, yeah, you're gonna have to memorize stuff in that case, but it's only for the test. Like in the real world, you're generally gonna have the ability to, if not Google search, at least like check some kind of knowledge base somewhere, like do some kind of research to solve your problems. Like, I'm not sitting here knowing all of this from scratch. I have pages upon pages, hundreds of pages of documentation that I have up on another screen, and I'm just looking up the things I need and writing stuff based on those. Like, I wouldn't hope to have this memorized, especially because it's not just C++ that I have to know here. It's like the things specific to the engine. Yeah, I don't remember a command on a coding test and you fail. Don't remember a command while coding in any other environment. You Google it, check API. Yep. A lot of times it's just how good is your Google foo? Can you look up the answer to your problem? And in some cases, it's just about being able to do that, but do it quickly and efficiently. When I worked in help desk support, a lot of times I would get problems that I had never seen before. And I'd still solve them relatively quickly. I would get asked by people I worked with, like, how I knew what the answer to that was. And it's like, I'm just really quick and efficient at Google. Like, you just gotta be fast and efficient at finding what you need and learn how to search for something, because there is a bit of a trick to it in some cases. Yeah, you got to kind of know what it should do by reading it. Yeah, but I think, at least with a lot of programming languages, as long as they're, somewhat human readable, that if you know one language, you should generally be able to do that with a lot of them. Configuration, input, yaw, offset, interpreter speed. Yes. No, that's no. That's not what I hit tab for. You should have done the thing I hit tab for. There you go. Yeah. And then sometimes it's, the specific API you're working with. Like, yeah, Unreal is using C++, but they expect, like Unreal expects things, especially if you're dealing with like objects and stuff, to be named very specifically depending on what type of class they are. In the sense that like you've always got to have usually some letter at the start of the class name whenever it's declared. Yeah, it's the framework, yeah. So, you know, I could know C++ all day long, but I don't think I could sit here and code for this engine off the top of my head, not without like it literally being what I do every day, all the time. Then maybe. If I was the dude that wrote the engine, sure. Been going through a little bit each week recently, trying to get a basic understanding of Godot. Godot's API. Yeah. Harder to make something if I don't know what can be done. Yeah, there's a part of me that wants to learn Godot. Because there's so much you can do with it if you know how to use it. But, you know, I will say I have no intentions of using Unity ever again. But I don't know, the licensing for Unreal is not so terrible that I can't get past it. And every time I like look at Godot, I get a little bit intimidated. And part of that's just opening the editor. Like the editor just intimidates me. Like, cause it kind of looks like ones I've seen before, but also kind of doesn't. Get absolute of the smooth aiming angle on the X. Now, why are you over there? There. I'm not sure how many game devs... Unity already killed all their goodwill. Not sure how many game devs will switch off Unity after they've finished whatever projects they already had going. I suspect a good portion of them, especially if they didn't have any particular like binding contracts that forced them to produce anything through Unity. I mean, I can't for the life of me remember the name of the studio, but I feel like there was at least one fairly significant, I mean, I think they're still considered an indie studio, but a fairly significant studio that basically stopped the project they were doing mid-development and were like, you know, fuck this, we're leaving Unity. We're gonna, you know, it means we have to start over, but we're leaving Unity. I think Unity's walked some of their bullshit back, but I mean, I don't know that you can't really trust them at that point. Let's see. I need this, but then I can do one here. Yeah, especially if they're like built on entirely different, not only are their APIs going to be different, but if they're built on like entirely different languages, then it's not going to be as simple as just changing some, you know, framework structure. I wish I could remember which studio that was. Off the top of my head, though, I can't, because it was, I mean, it's been a bit now at this point. game devs that were like 2 or 3 plus years into a Unity game likely would really not want to switch. I don't think that this particular one wanted to switch at all, if I recall. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it, because now I'm curious. Let's see. Game Studio quits. Unity starts over. Let's see. Hey, Ambrosia, I mean, you're not that late. I guess I have been going for like an hour or something. I kind of lost track of how long I'd been going for. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I'm almost at like 2 hours. I was trying to find an article here. But I am well. I get to work from home tomorrow, so it's kind of like a Friday, because I don't have to drive to the office tomorrow because of the snowstorm that's supposed to be coming our way. I cannot find... I mean, I'm finding people talking about how they were not going to switch mid-project, but there was one in particular because they like went completely public on it. And well, so far, the storm isn't supposed to hit until like noon or so. I cannot for the life of me find this article. I remember there being articles about it, but I can't for the life of me. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time hunting for it. But on the subject of that storm, so it's not supposed to hit us until like noon, but out of abundance of caution, the company decided to close the office for tomorrow, which was good. I mean, because I was actually looking at it going, well, I live west of where I work, and the storm is coming from the west. So if I left early, even if I left early to try and get home ahead of it, I would be driving into it. Like by the time I would get the warning that I needed to go home, it would be probably too late and I'd be driving into it. Or it would be like so soon after I had got to work that it wasn't worth it. So I was glad that they made it as a unanimous call to have us work from home. But the storm itself, like unless you try to go somewhere, shouldn't be a big problem. I'm hoping we don't lose power, but more than likely if we lose power, it's going to be from like an idiot hitting a power line or something, like hitting a telephone pole and taking down a power line or something. Not from like the storm itself. We don't have, I guess a tree could take something down, but not like in our immediate area. the larger issue we have in my area is like, while the mountains in my state get snow, like you would expect in the winter, we don't really tend to get snow here. In fact, the last time we had a snow here in the state, or not in the state, but in the city, in the general area I live, was like 3 years ago. And so what we tend to get is what they lovingly refer to as a wintry mix, which basically means it's about as much sleet and freezing rain as it is snow. So, you know, they're only calling for, like, at most in parts of the city to get like, and around the city to get like 2 to 3 inches, which, so you're talking like maybe that much snow. That's not much snow, and you wouldn't think that'd be a big problem, except that 2 to 3 inches of snow is probably sitting on ice like that because of the way it tends to happen. And we don't get that winter weather a lot. So the city doesn't have, really our whole state doesn't have the infrastructure to like efficiently take care of it. Like they went out and they put brine and stuff on the roads to try to help melt the ice with salt and whatnot. But the problem we tend to have is it's warm enough here that it starts off as rain. It almost always start off as freezing rain. So then it washes the salt away. And then it freezes. So that's usually what happens. So as long as you don't try to go anywhere, you're usually fine. Also, it's supposed to warm back up relatively quickly, so it'll probably melt within a day or so. But we just basically get sleet and ice more than anything else. I don't think we've had a halfway decent snow since I was a kid. But yeah, we just get kind of a wintry mix here, and that's usually what makes it completely awful. I especially don't like to travel at all when it's snowy or icy around here, because I had like a bad accident when I was a teenager. So, like I'm not injured from it. Like in that sense, I'm fine, but like kind of, you know, sticks with you a bit, that kind of stuff. But we have enough stuff like here at the house that we should be all right for the couple days or so, that it'll probably be affecting us. It'll more be close call can still be memorable. Oh yeah. Yeah, you flip a car upside down into a creek, it'll stick with you. So I know some people that'll, you know, they have like 4-wheel drive vehicles or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'll drive you somewhere." And I'm like, no, you won't. I'm not going to go anywhere. I don't care if your vehicle, you know, if you've got chains and 4-wheel drive and you've got all this experience driving in winter weather, because, you know, you came from up north or whatever. I don't want any part of it. I will keep my happy ass at home. So, but barring us losing power or something tomorrow, I should still be able to stream for my usual Friday game night. I haven't decided yet what the game will be, but I do still plan to be live. All right. So let's see. I hate to wrap up a stream so soon after you popped in there, Ambrosia, but I was kind of planning to only go for about 2 hours. We're about 10 minutes away from that, give or take. So I think I'm leaning towards possibly having tomorrow's game. Let's see, where is it? I think I'm kind of thinking like, because I've only played it a little bit, and it is in sort of that Souls-like niche that I enjoy sometimes. Kind of thinking like I'll play this. I played it for like an hour on a plane ride the last time I went to San Francisco. So I'm kind of thinking I might play Lies of P tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. It's very Bloodborne so far as my impression of it, and I love Bloodborne's aesthetic. In fact, it's very much the inspiration for the Soulsborne that my indie team is going to work on, but from an aesthetic standpoint. But the sort of faster paced combat I haven't quite got the hang of yet. But yeah, so I think I'll have this probably be what I play for tomorrow. Give me a chance to actually sit down and spend a little more time with it. I know it's pretty positive of a game. So I think that's going to be tomorrow's game. I might go might go live earlier tomorrow than usual on a Friday. Probably not. I think I'll probably consistent. Yeah, for consistency's sake. I will probably stick to my usual time. But I'm glad you were able to pop in at least for a little bit. I did manage to catch a little bit of your stream. Was it yesterday that you were live? I think you were live yesterday. And I was able to pop in for a little bit. So that was an interesting, little, I guess you'd consider it a cozy game, probably. Thanks for the follow, Aries. We're actually kind of wrapping up for the evening. It's been going about 2 hours. So I hate that you might have only just now popped in. If you were really interested in seeing the boring coding, the VOD should be live soon. And it'll be on here and on YouTube. We were just discussing that tomorrow is going to probably be game night. And that we'll probably play Lies of P. Because I played it for like an hour on a plane ride back when it came out, but I haven't actually spent any time with it outside of that. And I tend to like Soulsborne style games. Like I like Bloodborne, but I didn't get a PlayStation until long after it was kind of relevant, so I haven't spent that much time with it. So and then my usual schedule will make Tuesday and Thursday of next week development streams again. So that's the 14th and the 16th will be development. I probably need to get some work done on this project outside of those. So these past streams, I've kind of been isolating that work to that specific, to those specific streams. But this I'll probably have, it'll be as if I've jumped a little bit ahead, hopefully, if I get some stuff done between now and then. Because I've got some other things I need to work on. I've also got a couple applications I might do some streams for, some web applications. We've got our team project management app that I need to put some more work into. So let me see if anybody is live that I follow that I can raid people into. Yeah. I see someone streaming Resident Evil. That is... We're gonna raid Ninja Gaia. If I can manage to spell her username correctly. She is playing Resident Evil 4. So, kind of a relevant subject since my game's kind of Resident Evil based. All right. You guys have a good night.